Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Collin Manley. It is currently July 25th as of this recording, and baseball, it's back. I couldn't be more excited about this season getting back underway. It didn't seem like it was going to ever get here, and now that it is, heaven on earth, it really is. I have not left my couch very often, as one game seems to be on the TV, another one on the laptop, sometimes even a third one on the phone right in front of me. I get excited like this for the start of every single season. I don't know how to explain it to other people. Just opening day, opening week, it's just, it's magical. It really is. And when we have all this stuff going on, all this baseball coming back at us pretty fast, it just leads for more stuff for us to talk about, and a lot of stuff we need to talk about indeed. So some of the things we're going to hit on the podcast today: news and noise around the league. Make sure you are caught up on every team's news around the league. 30 MLB teams, hitting you with some of the big points that have happened recently. I want to talk about also some first thoughts of these early games in this different environment. And it really definitely feels like different is going to be the word of the year. It's just no better way to really explain this season and everything that's going on in the world today other than it's just different. We're also going to touch on what is going to be new for this upcoming season. There's a lot of rule changes, but there's also some new stuff that just came down, like how the playoffs are going to be run. And I wanted to make sure that we took the time to touch upon that a little bit so that you are fully prepared for everything going on this season. And lastly, I want to talk about some players to keep an eye on over a 60-game stretch for all types of reasons. It could be something that I want to see for awards races. It's something I want to see just because the player is intriguing to me, or just any other reason. And we're going to touch upon that. I have 10 players that I'm going to want to talk about in that last segment, so make sure you stick around all the way through so you get all of that information. But first thing, in segment number one, we're going to talk about is that news and noise around the league, keeping you up to date on all big information across the 30 MLB teams. And really the biggest thing that I wanted to touch on right away is, hey, Blue Jays, we have finally found you a home. This is just a crazy thing. Even after the season, starting on Thursday, we had to seriously question where one of our 30 MLB teams would call home this season. Rumors had been circulating all over the place. Pittsburgh was brought up right away. It looked like Pittsburgh had agreed to let the Blue Jays play there, and then the state of Pennsylvania stepped in and said, no, we are not going to allow this. Then there were rumors with Baltimore happening. Then that disappeared on us, but it looks as if Buffalo will finally be the home spot for at least a majority of the Blue Jays home games. Now, this is a big mention for Buffalo because it is home to their AAA affiliate, the Buffalo Bisons, which I think will be important. I'll touch on that in a little bit. Time was coming down for the team, and even though they had started their season on the road, they were going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Rays right away to start the year. They were going to have to welcome the Washington Nationals in on Wednesday and Thursday of this upcoming week to start their first home series. So they definitely had some pressure on them to get this figured out. And things really don't seem to be fully figured out yet anyways, as a lot of changes are going to be had to be made in Buffalo. Some of the things that were talked about was the locker rooms were going to need to be upgraded for social distancing purposes, so there's going to have to be some changes in construction going on there. But also the other big thing that's been talked about a lot, even when Buffalo was mentioned early on in the process, is that the lights are going to need to be upgraded at the stadium as well. They're not going to be up to MLB standards, so that's something that we're going to see happening before the first home games are really happening, at least home night games for Buffalo hosting the Blue Jays. And I find this interesting in the sense that a lot of people would probably be complaining if this was their team, because it feels like almost potentially 60 road games because you're not actually at your home. But I was wondering if there is a team that could potentially survive this, it might be the Blue Jays, because this is a young team to begin with, and many of these guys played in Buffalo not that long ago. They are a very young roster that's come up through their minor league system. They might be set up to be okay for doing this for one season. So I find that very interesting considering the young talent they have. We'll have to see. It's definitely something to keep an eye on as we get closer to those home games on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm sure we'll have some more news coming through about the stadium, about the changes that are made. And I also saw that, Vlad Guerrero Jr. said it's different from the Rogers Center in Toronto. So it's something where the field is not going to be as friendly to hitters, he said. So we will be definitely watching closely to see what happens with that. Next, for some news and noise around the league, Clayton Kershaw, after being a late scratch on Thursday for the opening game for the Dodgers versus the Giants, it looks like he doesn't have a lot of issues going to missing a great deal of time. So he was placed on the injured list because of some back stiffness, which when it comes to back problems with pitchers, you really do not want to mess around with this. But he turned right around Friday and was throwing from 90 feet. So the report did not say if it was off a mound or if it was just 90 feet in general, but that's some positive results. Quite optimistic to return a lot sooner probably than originally thought. Something to for sure be keeping an eye on. It's a team where they would love to have Kershaw back. I'm sure they would be all about getting him back. But they're pretty loaded. And that strong rotation they already have, they may be able to survive a little bit, even with all the offensive power. They might be able to survive a little bit without having to rush back Kershaw. So we will have to see how this goes, and I'm sure we'll get more information as we move on. Next up for some pitcher injury news, Marcus Stroman for the New York Mets has been making it known that he is hoping for a quick return for the Mets this season. It's big news considering the fact that they did have some back issues with Jacob deGrom, but he ended up pitching opening day, looked great, got 5 great innings out of him. The Mets are already down Noah Syndergaard for this season. He's having Tommy John, so he's going to be out. So getting Stroman back would be huge for New York, and they would love to get back one of its best pitchers that they acquired last year towards the trade deadline. Stroman had been slowed by a calf injury, but he did comment saying that it, quote, looks worse, end quote, on the MRI than it actually feels. Something you just have to kind of trust the player with. These guys are gritty. They are competitors, and sometimes they're going to say that, it's not as bad as you think. But the MRI did label it as a tear in the calf, and the 29-year-old did say that he was kind of shocked that it was labeled that way. He claims that he's not having any trouble recovering, and he will be coming back hopefully sooner than later. But Marcus Stroman did double down in saying that he does need to feel 100% before he can come back to play full speed. So this is something that while he would love to be back, he needs to be at his best before he can even consider playing. So definitely something to keep an eye on when it considers the Mets' tough starting rotation. Next up, we are starting to see teams struggle with that COVID-19 as scratches are starting to come closer to games. It was something that we were going to expect to see with the times. No surprise here. So opening games are what took the first hit. Juan Soto, being the big one, was unable to play in the Nationals opener versus the Yankees because of a positive test that was reported on Thursday morning. So that's something that definitely came by surprise. He didn't seem to be struggling with symptoms or anything being a major problem, but with that positive test, they were taken out. He's going to be put into a quarantine. We'll see when we hear back from him. The Braves also are another team getting hit by COVID-19. They're down their 2 top catchers as of Friday with Tyler Flowers and Chavis Duran, both showing symptoms. Now, this one was interesting in the sense that the 2 Braves players did test negative for the coronavirus, but because of them showing symptoms, they ultimately did not travel with the team because of this. Now, the Braves are a team that have been hit very, very hard by this at times. Freddie Freeman had been one that was talked about. He had it and mainly shared some scary stories about how his fever, I believe he said, got up to 105, and that was just a very tough time for him. Right-handed pitcher Toki Toussaint said he's back with the team after he was struggling with it for a little bit. But they also have left-handed pitcher Will Smith and infielder Pete Kozma both away from the team still because of it. So the Atlanta Braves definitely being some teams that are struggling early on with COVID-19. Staying on those Atlanta Braves, a trade has been made. The Cincinnati Reds have agreed to send Scott Schiebler to send some outfield help to the Braves, and this is also very big news considering the fact that Nick Markakis was on the Braves and he is sitting out the season because of concerns of COVID-19. So then the Braves turned around and they look to have had a deal with Yasiel Puig. Well, then that fell through because Puig also tested positive for COVID-19. So in return, the Braves will be sending back cash to complete the trade swap for Schiebler. He is a .240 career hitter, having spent times with the Reds and Dodgers in his career thus far. Last year was a very, very, very down season for the outfielder, and after some off-season moves that the Cincinnati Reds have made, they didn't really have much of a place for him anymore. So the Braves, desperate to make some depth moves, they were willing to take on the risk, and so they made the move to get Schiebler on their team, and that will be their outfield help, at least for now. We'll see if they end up doing anything else to help out the team. Matt Harvey not staying away from baseball, it looks like, as well. He's reportedly going to his 4th franchise since 2018. Considered to be close to a deal with the Kansas City Royals right now after being a part of the Los Angeles Angels in 2019. And that 2019 season was a little rough, just a little rough for Harvey. He's coming off a season where he was 3-5, had a 7.09 ERA in 12 starts. He's kind of been on a steady decline since his 2016 season when he was kind of having his best with the New York Mets. But the Royals are really trying to figure out their rotation for the season. So they are looking to see what they can get out of Harvey, potentially seeing what he has left in the tank. Any help that the Royals can get will be big considering their schedule of AL and NL Central teams is tough. I mean, just consider what they have to play this year. They got to go through the Indians, the Twins, a White Sox team that's trying to turn around. That's just in their division. And then when they go over to the National League, I mean, you got the Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers. Even the Pirates are not an easy win. So looking to get whatever help they can in Kansas City, seeing what Matt Harvey has left for them. And lastly, for news and noise around the league, the Nationals look to be closing in on a deal with Josh Harrison. Harrison considered to have quite a few major league offers to be deciding from, but the veteran infielder has decided he's going to go with the defending champion Nationals. Harrison was released from the Phillies after not making the opening day roster. Very flexible defender the Nationals are getting, as he has spent time at second and third base in his career. So with experience at third, you might think he might have some chances at first base too. Who knows? Definitely got to fill that hole with Ryan Zimmerman sitting out the year. And he's even dabbled a little bit in the outfield. So similar to Harvey, though, Harrison is looking to kind of recapture his best days in the sense of when he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates, trying to recapture that here in Washington as the Nats look to make a move to just have some more depth on the team and some creativity in building their lineups. And it's definitely been something interesting to watch as this season has been progressing, considering the fact that there's been a lot of moves early on when it comes to free agents and trades. And I understand fully that injuries happen, kind of how you have to consider COVID as well, almost like injuries because you're losing guys for stints. But usually when teams go in with their opening day roster, they're usually feeling pretty confident, pretty good with what they have. So you don't see all of this action early on, but it's a different season. And saying it again, it's going to be the word of the year. Things are just different. So we're going to have to just get used to it. So that's going to be wrapping up our news and noise around the league, starting things off here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We're going to be diving into next some thoughts on some of these early games to start the season. I know you probably have seen some things like, man, it's unique. We haven't seen this. It's weird without fans out there. Maybe there's this things I like, this things I don't. I definitely want to talk about that, how the season's been going so far in the next segment. So we're going to make sure that we take a deep dive into that here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Collin Manley, and we'll be back to talk about some of those changes here after a quick commercial break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. We just touched upon some news and noise around the league, things going on with teams, whether it's injury news, finding out where you're going to be playing your baseball games this season. Blue Jays, that story is just, it's still funny to me. Along with some transaction news for a lot of teams based on, injuries and potentially just giving some guys some chances that we've seen around the league bouncing around a little bit over the last few years. And the next thing we wanted to dive into, well, I want to dive into my first thoughts of these early games to start the season. In my last podcast, I talked about, some things that I would like to see happen, my questions I still have, and how stadiums are going to handle not having fans, what's some things that are going to be going on. And I definitely was glued to the games, yes, of course, but everything else. I mean, it's just in these different times, different situations, again, that word different just coming up over and over. I was glued to seeing everything else going on in the stadium because we have to get creative in these times. Things are going to be weird. How are we going to embrace them? How are we going to get through this? How's it going to work around? And so I wanted to make sure that I touched upon and talked about these first thoughts of these early games to start the season. And the one thing I noticed right away is we have a little rust to shake off, and that is all around. No problem with this. Players, coaches, umpires, and even announcers. Rust is going to happen. These guys haven't played that much. I mean, they had a short amount of time to get things up and running again, with very few scrimmages that were actually full game against other teams' scrimmages. It's not easy to just jump right back into this. I noticed it with announcers right away, and I give these announcers credit. I give them lots of credit. These guys are broadcasting, watching this stuff, these games on delay from the studio, just like you and me. All right? They are not in the ballpark like we're used to. Some of these guys are. Some of these sideline reporters are. But most of these big names, guys that are calling games, being play-by-play, being color commentary. They're not there. And it's hard being away from the actual game and giving that energy that an announcer is supposed to do. I call sporting events throughout the year for local radio stations where I live in Wisconsin, and we are right there on the field, on the court pretty much, so that we can pick up everything that's going on. We're seeing things that's happening with coaches, players, whatever. And I can't really imagine being at home watching a live stream of these games and then giving you play-by-play after that. It seems like something that would be way more difficult, and a lot of these guys that are calling these games, they have to rely on what the TV cameras are just picking up. And then the timing on top of that, oh my goodness. And some of them are not even being in the same room with each other as they're calling these games. They're bringing in guys from interviews, and they're all over the place. They're kind of stepping on each other's feet as they're trying to talk. It's not easy. It's just not easy, and these guys make it look easier than what it is. So hats off to you guys. It's going to get better as the season goes on. So by game 60, by playoff time, we're not even going to really notice it and talk about it. But that first game, that I definitely picked up on it right away. It's tough. It's tough to do. Also, when we talk about Rusty, man, there's been some base running blunders early on. I mean, I saw a few teams struggling with this, and we talked in the past about the short startup time, and it may be just completely unrealistic to hope that these guys come back fully sharp. I understand that. So there's going to be some things with hitting, some pitchers maybe finding their locations. But if there was one thing that I didn't think was going to be that bad, it was going to be base running, especially with less distractions in the park in general. Having mishaps on the base path was very interesting to see. I saw a few guys getting caught in pickles and rundowns that just there was no reason to. They were just almost not, it's like they weren't paying attention to the game, taking a risk that didn't need to happen. We saw a few players just putting teams in bad spots early on. And as a fan, this is frustrating in the sense of we only have 60 games. We got to limit as many mistakes as we can, and some of these things are going to come with rust, but base running is something where it's just head in the game sometimes. And some of these guys, they're going to kick themselves for it, but I'm just hoping it gets better. It's just something I've noticed right away. On a brighter side, players are coming into this thing with some humor, and we are going to be paying more attention to these guys with nobody in the stands like you would not believe. Anthony Rizzo got a great chuckle out of me. I was lucky enough that I was watching that Brewers-Cubs game on Friday night when Orlando Arcia reached first base, and he was offering hand sanitizer to the hitters in that game that reached first base. You know, unfortunate for the Brewers, not many made it safe, but I mean, maybe they're just practicing social distancing. Who knows? But I definitely did get a kick out of that. I'm more interested to see these interactions between these players because it's just funny stuff like that. And we're also seeing teammates that are getting into each other's walk-up songs in a way that I've never seen before. Players are just flat out having some fun out there on the field. We are getting to see these guys rooting and cheering in ways that it's been happening. It's been there. If you've ever been on part of a baseball team playing in high-level, high-stress games, the dugout is the place to be. It is where the fun is happening. But a lot of the times we don't always see it as much, and I'm taking it all in. It's reminding me of almost of an NBA atmosphere when those benches are just rowdy and having fun. And I'm seeing it from some teams early on in these games. Seeing more interactions between pitchers and hitters. I don't know if it's just, again, the fans being gone, but it's something I'm noticing. I'm definitely noticing some more stare downs when people are pitching inside. I'm also noticing some banter, a fun one that was happening on opening game between the Mets and the Braves. Jacob deGrom and Freddie Freeman were kind of bantering back and forth after some nasty pitching, which no surprise there, deGrom, and he's on the mound laughing about it. I mean, they're having a good time with it, and that's just something you don't always see. And I talked about it earlier in the week, how it is a great chance for the MLB to market their players more during this. Now, from the games I have watched so far, they are doing a great job bringing in players from other teams for interviews sometimes. That's really cool. Not something you see a lot in the past. Or they're bringing in some past greats. I saw Mike Piazza in an interview. This is exciting stuff. I like this. But I will keep banging the drum for on-field, mic'd-up situations. Maybe you're not going to air this stuff right away. Doing things live, obviously not smart. But having some of these guys mic'd up and then playing it back later in the next inning or something, we take advantage. Please, please, please take advantage. I did see that the Boston Red Sox, through their Twitter, they did have a short video posted by Jackie Bradley Jr. He was mic'd up before an at-bat. And it was just cool to see him going up to the ump. Hey, ump, how you doing? Nice to see you. Same with the catcher. He hits a double. He gets to second base right away to the shortstop. Hey, how are you? How's your kid? We get to see these guys in a different way. That was progress. Let's keep building on this. And one final thing with the player, I'm getting a kick out of some of these players sitting in the stands. Wrigley has it set up really well where they have a kind of a awning where players don't have to be fully in the dugout for their social distancing purposes. And you got all this room in the stadium. Hey, why not take advantage of it? It's actually pretty funny to see and a cool thing. I mean, these players are never going to get this opportunity to be playing and then just sit in the stands and watch from there. I mean, take advantage. Why not? Maybe at a Brewer game, we'll see one of the different players from the bullpen go down Bernie's slide after a home run or something. A guy can hope and dream about this. Another thing that I noticed from early on in these games, and this is just looking across the league, we are going to have some very, very, and did I just mention very fun offensive teams this season. I get it. We are only a couple games in, but I am just flat out salivating over the potential run scoring that we are going to be seeing from the likes of some of these teams. We knew the Dodgers were going to be a potent offense. We knew the Yankees were going to have an incredible collection of bats. Even the Twins. The Twins coming off a season where they set a record for the most home runs in a season. Yeah, we just added Josh Donaldson to the fold. Oh my gosh, and there's so many more. I mean, that Twins-White Sox game was fun offense right away. The Cubs are going to have potential to score a lot of runs. They're going to do that. That Blue Jays young team, going to be fun. I think the Phillies are going to explode at times. The Astros, of course, we know that lineup is absolutely loaded. The Braves are going to be great in putting up runs at times because they're more disciplined hitters. We saw the Reds with all their free agent acquisitions. They exploded already right away. There's going to be a lot of offense this year. It just feels like the ball is flying off the bats in some places. And even my Boston Red Sox, I mean, they put up 13 in their first game. Mookie's gone. A lot of people thought this is going to be a different team. That's some offense right there. And yes, I know it was against the Baltimore Orioles, but just let me have this one, all right? Early indications right now is that the Orioles are taking it to the Red Sox as I'm recording this right now, so it could come back around and bite me. But the offense is going to be fun this year. There's just so many great teams. And the more I started diving into this season, I was seeing it more and more, and it's pretty awesome. We're going to have some very high-scoring games. Next up, I need to take a moment to also applaud stadiums for what they are bringing as a live atmosphere without fans. I asked the questions in the last podcast that I hosted. I wanted to know, I was very curious, what are stadiums going to do? How are we going to make this feel like an actual season game? They've brought it so far. The cutouts that we're seeing in a lot of places, those are just fun. Some of them are funny, and then when a ball hits one, like hits somebody, gets a brief moment of fame for that person, just great work. This was beautifully done. Now, I know that we've had previous podcasts that have talked about the cost of doing that and everything. It's all great fun. It's all great work. I love it. I wish we could shower the entire stadium with these things, but I understand that they're kind of keeping it in camera's view of what they're doing this. And me personally, I actually wish I got in on this. I wish I had sent off to a few teams. I wonder if I could have gotten to a few stadiums like this and actually been all over the place, maybe wearing something that's stuck out. Who knows? But the cutouts are just fun. Love it. It was a great idea. Teams that are doing it, it's awesome so far. Organ players. I'm sure you thought we would be talking about that today. Organ players, welcome back to the fold of baseball. Like, welcome back. Now, I get it. Many stadiums have not gone away from organ players. If you're paying attention and you're looking at some of these stadiums, they have been playing. They have been there. They didn't go anywhere. But without fans, I am noticing this more and more than ever. And I love it. It's just got such an old feel to it, an old-time baseball feel. It's just so much fun. Organ players, this is your time to shine. Make sure you have all the stuff. I will recommend. Play all the classics, the ones that get people excited, but bring in some new songs as well. People are going to love this, and it's going to get them itching to go back to those games. Fans are already doing it. I know, like I said, I was watching Brewers Cubs one night. I could hear the organ playing a little bit. There is some fans way, way off in the outfield at Wrigley. If you get a chance to watch any games at Wrigley this year, they're not in the stadium, but they have kind of rooftop settings that are allowing fans to be there to watch games as long as they're only using a percentage of the seats. And I'm sure that they're loving every part of the baseball experience that they can get. So that's really cool. Organ players, big thumbs up to you guys. Welcome back. I mean, I don't want to say you weren't relevant before, but I'm just noticing you now, and it's so cool. I've also never noticed advertising as much as I had in the past. I did have this as a question as well about how advertisers are going to get more creative. And I don't know if I've seen anything that's just really popped off and been like, wow, that was cool. That was a good idea. But some of it just has to do with the massive tarps that are covering the seats. Let's just call it is what it is. No problem with that. But it's just popping a lot more with all the empty seats. There's definitely things that are catching your eye a little bit more than they have in the past. So that's one way advertising is taking over. That's going to help with some revenue for baseball as they try to pick up as much as they can. I'm still going to be watching to see if anything cool happens. This is just kind of a gauntlet thrown down for some of these advertising companies. Get out there, do something really cool and creative. Catch our attention. I really, really want to know what else we got out there. And then I have to go into the biggest thing that at least I was looking forward to when it came to this season is the pumped-in crowd noise. Talked about this in the past about how is it going to be regulated based on what your attendance actually was. Some players joked about how it's an advantage they're used to playing with little noise, so they liked it that way. I'm sure some people want it pumped in. They made a good point in the opening game between the Yankees and the Nationals about Garrett Cole, about how this game against the Nationals in Washington, D.C. is going to feel no different than his home opener just because of the fact there's nobody there. How can you try to make this feel the most like it's, hey, I just signed this massive contract to come play for the Yankees with the crowd noise? And it's been great so far in the games I've watched. And whoever it is running it for these teams, at least in the games I've seen, they are killing it. And I am not noticing like any delays. That's something I would be expecting, like a player strikes out and then a couple seconds later a roar. No, these guys are right on it. There is no delays. There's no sounds that are coming in that's just like, what the heck was that? Why did that happen? Nothing that feels weird. People that understand the moments of these games, what is going on, what's been normal in the past, they are running these soundboards and they are doing a great job. They are looking, after these first few games, like geniuses out there. I am just overly impressed. And I'm just wondering, what's next? Can we do more? I'm getting greedy. I know I'm getting greedy, but can we do more? I'm looking, can we get some chants started now? Are we going to have some things starting up in the middle of innings that we would normally see in a full stadium, going along with our organ players that are getting to be a little famous again? I'm wondering, can we get the standing ovation crowd? I'm thinking of those big-time games when a pitcher is in a high-stress moment. Let's say that it's a save opportunity, and we have 2 strikes in the final out of the 9th inning, and you just feel the crowd getting on their feet as things are roaring and getting louder and louder and louder. Are we going to bring that into the game then next? Are we going to see that sound being used, pumped through? Whatever we can do to normalize this, the best we can, I'm all for it. I've even seen, it was on Fox, they were kind of throwing in some animated crowd members when they were scanning over the entire field, and they were joking about it, how they were changing the color of their shirts, what team they were representing. It's coming along. We're seeing some fun with this. It's being great. Oh, and also with the sound going in, and I love this one as well, when players, opposing pitchers, are checking runners, we're getting booing coming from the sound. And that's just awesome. That's superb. Nailing it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep building upon it. Baseball is back, and it feels as real as we can make it right now with everything going on. So that's kind of my early look at these first few games, my thoughts that were going on. I'm enjoying this. I'm having a blast. I really thought this could go poorly, even though we have a lot of great opportunities. But so far, I'm just having fun with it. Just having so much fun. So that's going to be it for this segment. Diving into the next one, we're going to be talking about what's new for the upcoming season. I want to make sure that you're caught up on all of the rule changes that are happening as we're getting into this season. I don't want you to be left out on anything. A lot of these are pretty straightforward. They've been around, but there's still a couple new things, and we could also talk about how they've affected games so far. So definitely got quite a few things to talk about still. Looking forward to it. Having fun. Nothing but best here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. We're going to dive into those new rules here after a quick ad break here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley, coming back for a third segment. We talked about news and noise around the league so far, things that are going on with teams having to do with health-wise, transactions. We also talked about some thoughts from these early games start to the season. We knew things were going to be different. We knew they were going to be a little weird. So we just kind of taking everything in, some things that we liked that we saw, maybe even some things that we could add on to it. So that was fun to talk about and discuss. But next up here in the third segment, we really want to talk about what is new for this upcoming season. So with the change to going to 60 games, it was an opportunity for the MLB to just try out a bunch of different things. And that's going to be happening across a lot of leagues probably because changing seasons. I mean, start and change times right away. That just changes your season calendar. So a lot of things are going to be unique. And I mainly wanted to go over what are the rule changes as we are getting into this season, but also some of the things we've seen from these rule changes so far. Because even though we're only a few games into the season, some teams only their second game, some their third, it's definitely been unique to see how these rules have come into play. So want to make sure that you're caught up on all of this as we are getting into the season, so no surprises for you. So the first thing that has to be talked about has to be the DH in both leagues, bringing in the designated hitter. This is something that I am already loving this season. I wanted to even take a chance on diving into teams that I think this will help the most in the NL. I think that's going to be a thing for a later podcast, but just from the games that I've watched so far, it will feel like it helps everyone so far. I mean, a stat that's continuously being brought up, I think Alex Rodriguez has been bringing this one up on a lot of gamecasts or games that he's been covering so far, is, in the postseason, pitchers went 1 for 60 last year. 1 for 60. And if we're just removing that completely, I don't have much of an argument for it. There is some fun in some pitchers batting, and there's always going to be some of those pitchers that actually don't hit too poorly. They're pretty good at what they do. They were hitters in high school, hitters in college, whatever it be, and so they know what to do when they're up there to bat. But when it comes down to it, those pitchers just really aren't hitting for a high average, and they really don't contribute to the game. And it's something that is just seamlessly flowed in. Out of every game I've watched, National League, American League, you almost just completely forget that the pitcher's batting spot is gone, because you're getting quality at-bats, important at-bats, every single time up. And it's been a lot of fun. And I know I'll get some feedback from people that, they love the strategy in it all. They go, the bunting. We don't see that anymore. We don't see bunting. We don't see, pitching changes that need to come because the pitcher's batting second in a tight game late. What are we going to do with this? I understand. I get it. That strategy was fun, and some great managers were able to use that to their advantage. Craig Counsell was one with the Brewers. He always did a great job with this. There's a lot of great other National League, even though there's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of guys that did a great job with this. But I do want to bring up the fact that with bunting, regardless, it was dying in the game. And it seems very dead now without pitchers in the lineup at all. Just following the trends even more in what we've been seeing in past seasons, it's gone. It's truly is a lost art. Now, I've seen a few players squaring around, maybe potentially bunting for a hit. I believe we had one in the opening night game for the Yankees as well. Can't remember. One guy did use it to bunt for a hit, but it's truly a lost art. And it's going to be something that I think becomes more of a weapon in some situations. But we're seeing a lot of teams play the numbers regardless. They think they have a better chance of scoring for giving that out away anyways. They think that they, strategically looking at the statistics, can get that runner around without having to sacrifice an out regardless. So it's a trend that's just continuing to go on, and with this DH, we're going to see less and less bunting anyways. But it hasn't bothered me so far. I can truly say that. I mean, outside of maybe a Bartolo Colon home run, I can think of Brandon Woodruff had a big home run on Clayton Kershaw a few years ago on the NLCS, but you really don't see these pitchers come in and do massive, massive things. So I've been okay with the change. I actually think it's a great change. I was leaning for it for a long time, but now that I'm actually seeing it in play early on, I'm loving it even more than I thought I would. Hate to say it to those that love the old style way of baseball, but I just think the DH is it's a great thing in both leagues. Let's get the offense going. It brings more exciting at bats. The second rule change, big one, very big one, has to do with reliever changes. Now, this is one that is being tested out this year. I'm actually very curious to see if this one sticks around past this season, if people kind of throw fits about it. But how it works for a reliever this year is when a new pitcher enters the game, there's two scenarios before he can come out. he has to either face 3 batters or end the inning in which he came in. And this one could end up affecting more games than you think. If you thought that managers had to get creative when it came to bunting, replacing pitchers with pinch hitters, maybe pulling them earlier than they would because it's a close game, this is the one that's going to get interesting. And this is definitely one that managers have kind of grumbled about, especially when it was announced, not loving it, because it can really alter a game. When a player comes in to face 3 batters, you're going to have to start looking at, all right, am I going to throw a reliever in here because I like the advantage in a majority of the at-bats? So maybe the righty-righty matchup. Or am I going to bring in a reliever just based on one of the at-bats, the best hitter of the 3? Am I going to get him through a full inning? This is going to be interesting. Last night in Cubs-Brewers on Friday night, Kyle Hendricks was dominating. He was throwing one of the best games that we've seen from a pitcher in a while. Full game, shutout, didn't have a single pitch go over 90 miles per hour. He was dominating the Brewers all night. And the Brewers had to make a late reliever change, which led to an Anthony Rizzo home run that helped build a lead from 2-3. Now, some may say, well, it doesn't matter. Hendricks was untouchable that whole night for them. It wasn't going to change anything. Well, looking at that matchup, it was a right-handed pitcher versus left-handed hitting Rizzo. Craig Counsell's been pretty good with his bullpen staff before. He knew he had to face the third guy in that inning. I would not have been surprised in the slightest if he brought in a left-handed pitcher to end that inning after getting 2 outs, just to help his matchup, making it a 2-run game going in the 9th instead of a 3. It's little things like this. It's going to alter games. It's going to leave for some tough decisions for managers, especially late. So those teams that have great bullpens, a great closer, a great setup man, actually go maybe 2-3 deep in their bullpen is going to be huge, because you got to have guys to throw in there and go, I am expecting this person to eat a full inning, not just get me 1 out here. It's going to be hard. It's something I'm going to be watching throughout the season for sure, because over 60 games, we're going to see some managers probably chirp up about how they hated that they couldn't fix this matchup, and they have to look so far ahead when they have all these arms to throw, but yet we have to throw them this minimum amount. It's interesting. I saw it in one game already in the first night. We'll see how it carries on for the rest of the year. So definitely something to keep your eye on. The next thing is the extra innings change, and I was happy to see as well this one happened early. We got to see this because strategy is going to play a big part in these as well. Angels and Athletics goes into extras Friday night. It was interesting to see how players actually went into this situation as well, because Shohei Ohtani, he struck out. I believe he struck out in the 9th inning. So he was our last out for the Angels. He got to be our first runner, and he almost was shocked because he didn't remember that he was doing that. He was sitting in the dugout with his warm-up on before they had to remind him, hey, you got to go out there. You're going to be on second base for us to start this inning. That was funny to watch. And so it's something even the players aren't, fully prepared and ready for. And this is where strategy is going to come into, and it's going to get worked on potentially. From what we saw in this first situation, I think is going to be completely different from later on. We talked a lot about how bunting is dying. A lot of the times when we see this rule being used, it would have been in high school games, Babe Ruth games, younger ages. A lot of the times they start the inning with 1 out as well, and that runner on second. And that changes things in a big way, because a sacrifice bunt moves a guy over potentially, but then it's 2 outs in the inning. In the majors, we're starting with 0 outs. Is it worth it to use that sacrifice bunt to get a guy to third base one out, where a sac fly is still in play. It's going to be a heavy debated thing for a lot of teams, especially if you're the road team and you want to put the pressure on of getting an out right away. Getting a run right away. So can you move this guy to third with there only being one out? And I am not against this. I think it's definitely something that teams should try out. It's hard in a 60-game sample when each game matters a little more. It's just not the way the team's been playing, though. We're going to see if teams go that way. Are you going to be the road team, and are you going to try to put the pressure on the home team right away? Are you going to be aggressive, or are you going to play conservative on this? Because a lot of them would argue the guy on second, if we get a base hit, we're going to bring him in anyways, and we can threaten even more. Valid. Very, very valid. But I also am going to start wondering, for these teams that score in the top part of an inning, the road teams in extras, when the home team comes up to bat and they start with their runner on second base with nobody out, how many intentional walks are we going to see? Are we going to put a guy on first that we can start up double plays, or also having force outs at every single bag? It's something that has to be considered. It might be brought in. I want to know. It was very interesting in that A's-Angels games because nothing was really tried. Because a lot of people were chirping for the bunting, but like we said, bunting is kind of get very dead. We also ended up seeing that Ohtani was actually thrown out at third in this. It was a great heads-up play. A ground ball that caught him in a tough situation, rundown. Maybe their teams aren't going to even consider trying to get that force out, but it worked out for the A's in the end, this being the first one. Curious to see how this goes moving forward. A lot of different things can change. And with the A's, when they were coming up with no runs from the Angels, we maybe even thought we could see a sacrifice bunt to start the inning. Moving forward, we may see that more often. If you get out of the top of the inning and no runs were scored, guys now on second, this might be the time to bunt. It might be the time to get this down. We didn't see it last night. They got away with it. Why? Because after a hit by pitch and then a wild pitch and a walk, we saw the bases get loaded. And so they were sitting in a great spot. And here might have been the biggest strategy change of the whole thing. We saw the Angels then go to a 5-man infield to try to get the force out at home. They figured if a sac fly happens, the guy's getting in regardless. So let's beef up our infield so that we can stop him. Now, it didn't come into play as Matt Olson just blasted a grand slam right after that. It did start to show how these extra innings will get entertaining. So the baseball old school purist in me, it doesn't love it in the sense of, hey, we're just giving you this free base runner. And I've had this conversation with quite a few people, especially people that are older than me. They kind of feel the same way. They don't like the fact that we're just kind of giving you this little extra cheat way, a little extra credit on how to get your run. But it's going to bring entertainment. It's going to cut game time down and bring action into the game. And in a shortened season like this, when everything is going to get crazy and weird anyways, why not try this? Why not give it a chance? This first one had a lot of people question strategy. And then it ended up getting to an ending where it really didn't matter. But it's going to be something where we get more and more curious with how this plays out as we get more in the season. Because these managers probably have ideas on what they want to do. They're going to be learning from each other. They're going to see what's been successful and go from there. Because I don't think there's any set way yet. There's no way that we have a plan for this type of game yet. You may have thought you had one, but the perfect mold is really not set. And then the last one. The last big change that I wanted to talk about is the playoff format. And is this a big one? This is a big change. So we will be seeing now 16 teams making the playoffs in the postseason this year. Big change, considering we only had 10 the year before, considering 2 were wild card teams that, technically they're only guaranteed one game. We're going to see from the American League and from the National League 3 division winners. So that's going to be your top 3 seeds. Teams that win the East, Central, West. Then we'll have the 3 second place teams. That's going to be your 4, 5, 6. in each of those divisions as well. And then we will have the 2 best third-place teams in the league. But also, we could see one team coming that maybe finished 4th in the division. Odds of it, very, very, very low. Very, very, very low. But there is potential for that. And it's going to be tough. It's definitely going to be tough to see. So, you could now have a 4th-place team make it to the postseason. Just wrapping my head around that. It's kind of crazy. So the first round is only going to be a 3-game series. You're going to match up your seeds, seeding-wise, based on record, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, so on and so forth. And the team with the better record will host all 3 games, or potentially 2 games, obviously, if it's done. If the one team wins in 2 games, it's done. But it's going to only be a 3-game series for the first round. Keeping it short, keeping it brief, so that if we have some teams that we are really questionable about them even making the postseason to begin with, they might not even make it that far. So I'm okay with this being a shortened season, trying that one out. Then the second round, we're going back to things that we're used to in like the division series. Second round goes back to the best of 5, with home field going to the higher seed, and it's a 2-2-1 format. 2 home, 2 away, 1 home, leaning in the sense of who has the higher seed. Now, with that being said, and before I jump back to it, then Championship Series and World Series back to best of 7. Normal stuff that we're used to seeing. Now, after going through all of these, let's just be honest about what it is. This is being done to get more games and obviously bring in some more money for the MLB. Let's be realistic. We don't just expand the playoffs because we think it's better competition. No, we're getting more games in here. I would not expect this to just disappear after this season. Talks of playoff expansion have been ongoing since the addition of the second wild card. When the second wild card was added, a lot of people fought back on that going, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Those have been amazing games. We have seen some of our best postseason games from those. They've been great. And they've seen that as a major, major success. So that's why I would not be surprised if this continues on past this season. Don't be shocked. Talks of playoff expansion has been going on. But if there's one more thing that I'm actually curious about going forward with this change, with us moving to 16 teams, over half of the league now technically makes the postseason. Shouldn't say technically. They make the postseason. I do wonder how long it takes until we start talking about expansion teams joining the MLB as well. Are we going to look to bring in some more baseball teams with the expansion of playoffs? I'm taking a shot here, throwing it out there. It's been rumored, but it's something to keep an eye on. Las Vegas just got a football team. They just got a hockey team. How long until baseball? Sure, Nashville would love a baseball team. It's something that I'm expecting the chatter to pick up. Just calling my shot now. We'll see what it is. So that's what we have here, talking about all the rule changes that came this year, at least the big ones that are going to affect things in game and also towards the end of the season. Got some more stuff we want to talk about in our next segment. I want to talk about some players that I'm going to be keeping an eye on this 60-game season, give you reasons why I'm really interested about these players. Looking forward to seeing them. Probably a lot of them, but I narrowed my list down to 10. I'll give you my reasons why. And we'll talk about that after a quick commercial break here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. Be back right after this quick commercial break.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. We've talked about a lot of things so far today. There's so much to talk about with baseball back. We talked about news and noise around the league having to do with injuries, some transaction news. Talked about some first thoughts, seeing these games happening, finally happening. It feels so good to actually see some games happening on the field. Some of our first thoughts about things that we're seeing, and they have some ideas still that we want to shoot their way. And also talked about those new rules in this upcoming season, everything that has changed, some good things, some bad things. I don't know. We're going to have to watch them all play out. After the 60-game sample, I think we'll have a better idea if we want to see some of these things moving forward or if not. And, you know, it's change is good sometimes. Change is good sometimes, even for our baseball purists, and I definitely have some things that I love holding on to, but I'm at least intrigued to see what happens this season. And for our last segment, I want to talk about some players that I want to keep an eye on for the 60-game season. Many reasons as to why I have some interest here. I'm looking at career stats, guys who could really explode this season, and even some sophomores. Kind of had a collection of sophomores that I want to see pick up where they left off or come back even better. You know, I've just got a lot of curious things that I wonder about these players. So 10 players that I have. Could have gone a lot longer on this list, but I figured cutting it at 10, that's a good start right there. The first one that I really wanted to look at, and this is career stats numbers. The reason I bring this one up is I'm curious about Mr. Albert Pujols. He is currently sitting at 656 career home runs. That is only 4 behind Mr. Willie Mays. Gotta think he's going to pass that. Health permitting, he's going to pass Willie Mays and move into 5th all-time when it comes to home run leader's career. Next one ahead of him, that'd be Alex Rodriguez at 696. So I don't think he's hitting 40 home runs in this 60-game season. I could be wrong, but realistically, I don't think that one's going to happen. There's a lot of ground to make up for him. Albert Pujols was on a stretch with the Cardinals that he really was in consideration for chasing down Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron, being up there in that list. He's slowed down, definitely, since his time in an Angels uniform, but I'm curious to see where he ends up going. How much baseball are we going to be getting out of Albert Pujols moving forward? I mean, he's been in the league a long time. His first season, 2001. He's with the Cardinals from 2001 to 2011. Then with the Angels from 2012 to the present. So, 8 years. He's done a lot. It's going to be within question. I want to see how far he's going to get on this home run list. Definitely looking like he's going to pass one spot this year. But how far is he going to get into next year? What's the chase going to end up looking like? Can he repeat and have an all right season like he has in the past? He's not unplayable. He's definitely not unplayable. He's still able to give you some work from the DH position, play first base for you. He's always been sneaky good defender sometimes. We're going to see what we get out of him. Last season with the A's, he batted, I believe it was around 240. Had a 240 season, and it looks like 244 was his average. Not awful. 23 home runs. That was in a full season. So we'll see what he can get in this 60-game stretch. Albert Pujols, definitely one of the players I want to watch. The second one I want to watch, keep an eye on, is Mr. Christian Yelich. So this is more in the now. I want to see what type of season he's going to put together. It's very broad, I know. But I say this for a reason. We've been hearing a little more chatter, and there was an article written about Christian Yelich potentially being the best player in baseball right now. I think that belongs to Mike Trout. I don't think that's much of a debate right now. But if this man, Mr. Yelich, puts together a third dominant season like he did, blasting close to 40 home runs, batting in that 320 range, it is getting close. It is getting a lot closer to arguing he is up there with the likes of Trout. The thing is, with Trout that he has over Yelich, is just that consistency. He's been doing this his entire career, and that's why we consider him so great. Can the Brewers star really show he is meant to be in that conversation as the best in baseball? I want to know. That's something I'd be watching this year. It's only a 60-game season. He's coming back after a knee injury that was pretty scary that kind of ended his season last year, but what can he do? He's off to a slow start, I know, this season. I think he hit a home run today. So that was his first hit of the year. Struggling in Wrigley. He's had trouble in Wrigley in the past, but Christian Yelich, definitely a player I'm going to be watching this year. Number 3, going back to those Angels, Shohei Ohtani. It can't be just me that gets all excited about the idea of these two-way players. These two-way players you just don't see in baseball anymore. And it gets me so excited. So crazy excited. He's great at 2 spots. Top of the line starter that could be in the running for a Cy Young. It's not crazy this year to think so. Along with a guy who is going to take the DH position in his off days. He's been batting around 280 for his career, and that's just making the jump over. He's going to get better. He's still crazy, crazy young. I want to watch this guy unfold before us, and I really do think he has the potential to do some great things this year. It's exciting. He's only 26 years old. I mean, he's still crazy, crazy young and has the ability to really, really make some noise this season. Number 4 for me, Mookie Betts. As a Red Sox fan, I was so sad to see him go. I was even sadder when I saw the contract he signed because I thought, man, if he at least started the year in Boston, it's hard to think that they wouldn't have come to an agreement on that. And that might just be a discounted contract price because of the times. Maybe it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have this whole COVID thing go on. Maybe the money still would have been crazy high. I don't know. That's just me taking a guess. I'd have to shake a magic 8-ball, I guess, and try to figure that one out. But he's new team, new league, new contract. How does this guy do? Like I said, a Sox fan, I hate to see him go. And now he's in a lineup that is so loaded, it feels like there is no pressure on him. It's a great situation for him to be in. Great situation. I do want to see how he transitions to the NL. A lot of people think he is considered one of the favorites to be league MVP. Can he answer that call? It's a big move. You're changing time zones. You're going over. You're facing a bunch of pitchers you may not have seen, at least have a lot of experience against. I don't think it's as easy as people like to say. Like, oh, he's just good. He's going to still be good there. Yes, he will be. But is he going to be as dominant as he has been in the past? He's definitely going to be comfortable there. I hope that the Dodgers use him the right way and just let him sit in that leadoff spot. That's when he was his best. The guy is just a player, 5-tool player, as incredible as it gets. Number 5 for me, I cheated. I cheated on this one because I'm tying together 3 players. I'm going to tie together Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, and Kevin Biggio. This young trio just has me hooked. I may end up talking about them every single podcast, I swear. But they really are just that exciting of a team. You like power hitting? Guess what? All three of these guys, they're going to be able to hit home runs. Average is your thing. All three have the chance to be there for you. Vlad Guerrero was around that 280 mark. Bo Bichette was hitting over 300 at the end of last season. Now, Biggio was lower, but he's still going to bat too. They believe that this guy can hit for average as well. You a defensive person? Hey, Bo Bichette had a positive defensive WAR last year. These guys are going to be fun for as long as they stay together. They really are. And it's going to be even more fun of a storyline to watch just because I'm considering the fact that they come from Toronto into Buffalo this year playing in the new stadium. People are going to have their eyes on that. They're not going to care. This is just going to be a young group of guys that want to get out there and they want to play some stinking baseball. And I am going to be glued. I am hoping that I can see these guys as much as possible. I hope that the Jays get the pitching they need to move on. Like I said, Red Sox fan, so in the AL East, I'm scared of them just because of if they make that growth, they take that next step forward. That's not good for the Red Sox. But these guys are just going to be must-watch. I think about when Yasiel Puig came up right away, and he was just so much excitement for the Dodgers. Vlad Guerrero is on that same level. And then you got two other guys to put around him. It's going to be fun. This Blue Jays team is just going to be so much fun. And I can't wait to see it play out. Can't wait. For number 6 for me, I'm going to go with another sophomore. Big market man. Pete Alonso. And I'm going to keep this one short and simple as to why I want to keep an eye on him. And it's for the sophomore slump. Now, you can call me out on this and say, hey, those three guys you gave before from the Blue Jays, they're all sophomores as well. Yes, you're right. I agree with you fully there. The thing is, the difference is these three guys from the Jays are just coming into their own. We're just starting to see what they are. Pete Alonso came in last year with a bang. Like, literally, our rookie home run leader. Is he going to be as big of a threat from the plate like he was last season? Okay. All coming back for a second season, those guys I'm mentioning. Alonso just blew up so much bigger than the other guys. What's his encore performance this year? Can he mash 20 home runs? He had a great pace going last year through 60 games. He's set up for this type of stuff. I want to see it from him. Sometimes that's a gut call with these players, and he's one that I worry about a little bit. He is one I definitely worry about a little bit. Number 7, Francisco Lindor. He is a player that's going to be great, I think, no matter what. The question is, how does his season unfold? Will he actually get traded this year? He is the name that everyone's watching when it comes to trade chatter. The Indians will have to decide on where their season is going and what they want to do with Lindor. This new playoff format, with 16 teams making it, changes a lot of things. The AL Central is competitive. The Twins are going to be good. The Indians are going to be good. The White Sox have a chance to also be good. Could we see those three teams make it? Maybe. Are the Indians going to say, we're a second-place team, we're not good enough, we're still going to make the trade, try to get the prospects? This could go a lot of different directions, and when we get closer to that trade deadline, we are really going to see what is thought about Lindor, because there's quite a few teams that I think would be very willing to make the trades to get him, even if it's for a short rental. In this season, this 60-game season, when anything can happen, a lot of teams can make the playoffs. Maybe the Indians are more willing to trade him. I mean, this it could definitely just go a lot of different ways. Very interestingly enough. So, Francisco Lindor, I'm not worried about your play. Not in the slightest. I'm more worried about what ball cap you're going to be wearing by the end of the season. Number 8 for players that I want to watch that I got my eye on this season, Madison Bumgarner. It's a big contract he just signed for a pitcher with a lot of mileage, good mileage, got experience. But he's on the other side of 30 now. It isn't all concerns that I have for Bumgarner. I'm not going to be the one out here going, man, I don't understand what the Diamondbacks are doing. Because I get it. They're committed. They're going in. They think that they could win a lot of games this year. And if Bumgarner is playing well, they do have the potential to be that sneaky good team this year. They really do. But it is scary to give big money to a pitcher that is aging a little bit. Things worked out for the Diamondbacks with Zach Greinke when they gave him that contract. They were able to trade him away, get more stuff back. I don't know if they're going to have the same luck with Bumgarner. I don't know if that's going to be the case. We'll see. I mean, he is, like we said, 30. He had their opening day start against the Padres. Wasn't awful pitching. He went 5 2/3, gave up 3 runs. That Padres offense is going to be fun. Hosmer had a big day, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on because it could literally tilt their season in 2 different ways. If Bumgarner's having a great season, that Diamondbacks team could go. If he's not, that could be some pressure on that team considering the contract they just gave to him. Plus, it's also sad that we're not going to see Bumgarner swinging a stick. That's one of our pitchers that not getting to bat that we're going to be sad not to see. Number 9 for me, going back to a Brewers player, would have to be Josh Hader. Now, I picked this name because I wanted to get crazy. I've talked about this before, about how award season, I'd love crazy. I'd love different for this season. Everything's going to be different already. Why not? Cy Youngs for pitchers through 60 games could end up very different from what we've seen in other teams. Pitching stats usually are the long-haul marathon run. That's when we see our best guys. With the new reliever rule, we might see some relievers with high elevated numbers, not doing as well as they've done in the past. It's going to put some stress on some pitchers. But if there is one guy that this reliever rule does not affect, it's Hader. Hader was at his best as a multi-inning hybrid guy that just closed the door for stretches when it came to coming out of the bullpen for the Brewers. When Corey Knebel was healthy and who was actually their closer, he's back this year, Hader just came in and would pitch for 2-3 innings maybe sometimes and just dominate. Left-handers, right-handers, it did not matter. Will they go back to that? Or will they just use him as the closer role? Craig Counsell can get interesting with things, so I really want to see where this goes. Will his value for the Brewers team be so great that he is considered the best pitcher in baseball this season? I could see it with other closers happen as well. I want to see other closers get in this conversation because I think there's going to be more value put into a closer this year than in the past. And I'm so open to it. We haven't seen a closer win the Cy Young since 2003. And that was when we were seeing the dominant performance from Eric Gagne. So this is the season where maybe it happens, and I think if there's a guy that I'd have to pull out of a bullpen and think, maybe it's this guy, it would have to be Josh Hader. My early guesses. And then my 10th guy that I have my eye on this year, I can't get away from this player in Bryce Harper. I can't get away from this guy. I want to see a bounce-back season for Harper, but I guess if I'm being real, it's not like he was that bad last season. He still had 35 home runs, 114 RBIs. He gets a lot of scrutiny. He really does. He does get a lot of scrutiny. The 260 average, people would love to see that up. Before he got his contract with the Nationals, it was 249, though. So, I mean, that was better. He had a great season in the idea of, I'm here to hit, I'm here to produce runs. But I want to see him get back to when he was the conversation as one of the best in the game. 2017, when he batted .319, only played 111 games, but around that 30 home runs, had 87 RBIs. I mean, that was a short season for him, injury-wise. 2015, when he was just destroying. .330 batting, 42 home runs, 100 RBIs. I want to see him get back to that. He has the ability to be in the conversation of being one of the best in the game. Ability. He's just so up and down. But I would argue that baseball is just better when Harper is wreaking havoc. When Harper is playing well, he brings in fans. Lots of them. People love to see him play, love to root against him. And that Phillies team can also be very scary if he does play well, especially in a tough NL East. I mean, that NL East is going to be brutal. So look to see him have a better season in the sense of maybe just that batting average getting up, but still hitting those home runs, hitting those RBIs. So those are the players I want to keep an eye on. Pujols, Yelich, Ohtani, Mookie Betts, the combo of Guerrero, Bichette, and Biggio in Toronto. Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Mad Bum, Josh Hader, and Bryce Harper. A lot of other players that are going to be exciting. Guys you want to see in the majors this year. But in my eyes, those are the 10 that I am very interested in. Talked about a lot of things today on this podcast. A lot of great stuff covered. It's been fun. We're only a couple games in, and there's just so much on my mind for these teams. So I want to thank you guys for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. If you want to catch my shows, I'm always on every Sunday and Wednesday, but we got great content coming every day as well. Got a lot of people working hard to get you guys your baseball news. Like to also ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you guys get your podcast from and write a nice review. That really helps us out whenever you guys can get a review out to us. So always look forward to those. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Every little bit helps. So that's going to be it for me here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm Collin Manley. Hope you guys have a great one. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.